There's something weird going on here. I keep backing down the blower speed and we're making more horsepower. What? I'm Gale Banks. Welcome back to AMSOIL #1 with our supercharged twin-turbo Duramax. As I alluded to a second ago, there's some weirdness going on here. I keep backing down the blower and making more horsepower. This week, we've made 4 runs. Out of the box, we made 820 horsepower. We backed down the blower a little bit, and we made 956. So I thought, let's back it down some more. We backed it down some more, we made 1,017. All with basically the same air-fuel ratio and the same fuel. On the first 3 runs, the air-fuel ratio was nominally 20-1. So on the 4th run, I left the blower alone, and we started putting some fuel to it, and we made 1172. So on the 1172 run, we were at 15-1. The turbos really responded in a positive way. I'm starting to get an exhaust gas temperature. It's a bit edgy. So I'm going to give it some more fuel. We'll see if the turbos respond because I want 1,200 horsepower. So what I'm looking for here is a manifold air density of 250 pounds per 1,000 cubic feet or more. That will give us enough air going into the intake manifold to build our 1,200 horsepower. The manifold air density is the prime indicator of an engine's power potential, whether it's naturally aspirated, supercharged, turbocharged, or in this case, 2 turbos and a supercharger, and 2 charge air coolers. Those items, the turbochargers, supercharger, and the 2 charge air coolers, are density machines. They all improve air density, which is what supercharging is all about. 250 pounds per 1,000 cubic feet means that every 4 cubic feet of air passing through that intake manifold weighs a pound. Each cubic foot of air weighs 1/4 pound. So we're getting some density going. For you guys that are playing along at home, keep your eye on this gauge right here. The top number is manifold air density. The second one down is manifold air pressure. And the third one, which is reading 80 right now, is manifold air temperature. The manifold air pressure is a really rough indication. The manifold air density is the best indication of the engine's power potential. So you can forget about boost pressure. It's part of the calculation of manifold air density, which is the bottom line. So keep your eye on that gauge. We've got alarms set on the iDash Data Monster 1850 EGT and 17.5-1 air fuel. Now Jeff, I don't want to paint the walls with parts, but let's bang this turkey. Here we go. Start at 2,300 and up we go. Air density is damn near 100 pounds per 1,000 cubes. We're getting the engine coolant heat exchanger online. We should be very close to it. Coolant flow is 47 gallons a minute right now. Is that correct? Yeah. All right. Here we go. All right. 100.5. 200. 3. 400. Manifold air density coming up on 220. 800. 900. I saw 1,205 horsepower. Whoa, 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 mercy. Did we get a little warning on something there?
We had some turbine inlet temps get up there.
Yeah.
Hit our limit.
All right. Let me have that SD card. There are now hundreds of runs on this SD card. And out of those, I've chosen 5 to best illustrate this program. The first one is supercharger only. Remember, this was originally a monster truck program. It's now Mad Max. We wanted snappy, quick throttle response. So we decided to test the blower first, test it alone, make sure we had the response we were looking for, but only twist the blower hard enough to make about half that power gauge. Then we were going to twin turbo the blower, so to speak, blow through an intercooler with the twins into the Whipple supercharger, through a massive intercooler, and then into the engine. The second run I'm going to show you is where we put on the twin turbos. And that run shocked the hell out of me. The third run is where we backed down the blower to calm this thing down. Fourth run was to find the safe limit of this combination, which was damn close to 1,200 horsepower. And the fifth run was nailing the 1,200 horsepower goal. So let me walk you through it. We'll start out with the supercharger only. First run I'm going to show you, blower only with zoomy headers. The zoomy headers give you one hellacious sound. You can't hear it in the dyno cell, but you can hear it outside. I don't think the microphones are going to do this thing justice. We made 642 horsepower at 5,500 RPM. This is a 7-liter Duramax engine. And we did that with 20.9 pounds of boost pressure. Now that's low boost pressure for a diesel, so you don't get the swirl RPM that you get with higher boost pressure. The result is real inefficient combustion. We ran the supercharger 100% over crank speed. So at 5,500 RPM crankshaft, the blower is turning 11,000 RPM. That produced an air mass flow of 118.2 pounds per minute of air. And to do that, we had to inhale 1,624 cubic feet of ambient air each minute. I wanted to start out with 18:1 air-fuel ratio. To that airflow, we added 6.5 pounds of diesel fuel per minute, this being DF2. That fuel rate was necessary to hit 18:1 air-fuel ratio, which is my favorite for endurance engines. As far as exhaust gas temperature is concerned, we were at 1,296 degrees, which in a diesel racing engine like this is very comfortable. Part of the reason we got such a low EGT was a total absence of back pressure or turbine drive pressure. But the cam that's in the engine is designed to have drive pressure. The result being, during valve overlap, you're blowing air right through the combustion chamber. When you measure air-fuel ratio, it becomes a little diluted with extra oxygen. So my 18:1 might not be that accurate. What we end up with here is an incredibly inefficient engine. How do we rate an engine's efficiency on the dynamometer? We measure the amount of fuel it takes to make 1 horsepower for 1 hour. That's called the brake-specific fuel consumption, or BSFC. We're at 0.61 pounds of fuel to make 1 horsepower for 1 hour. That's not good. That's not efficient. Part of the reason we're inefficient is effectively no swirl RPM. And at 5,500 RPM, there's not a lot of time for that diesel combustion event to take place. We could hot rod the fuel, but I wanted to baseline this whole program, run this whole program on DF2. In short, what we're looking for in terms of brake spec fuel consumption, or just as the guys say, brake spec, is not a 610. We're looking for something in the 0.400 to 0.500 range. We're looking for a brake spec in the 400s. Now I'm going to take you to the first twin-turbo supercharged run. But before we get there, I want to explain to you why we didn't make the boost higher than 21 pounds. This graph shows it very easily. The blue trace is boost, and the red trace is compressor discharge temperature. You'll notice across the bottom of the graph, you'll notice a supercharger RPM. At about 9,500 supercharger RPM, the boost started flattening out, and at 10,000 it was flat at 20.9 pounds. We could have spun it faster, made more boost pressure, but we were running out of temperature overhead. You'll notice on the graph, although the boost is flatlined, the temperature continues to increase, and at 11,000 RPM we were at 338 degrees and climbing rapidly towards that 350 limit. So I decided to leave the blower right where it was. All right, now we're going to move to the first twin turbo supercharged run. We produced 820 horsepower. That's 178 horsepower more than without the turbochargers. And the horsepower is up 28%. But why so little? That just doesn't seem right. And when you look at the boost increase of 108%, more than double, I think you'll agree with me, something is very wrong here. All these numbers tend to support that conclusion. We never opened the wastegates on all of these runs. And on this first run, the turbo RPM is real safe at 128,000. The maximum for this pair of precision turbos is 148,000. So lots of overhead. Supercharger overdrive remained at 100% or 11,000. Supercharger RPM at 5,500 engine. The air mass flow went up to 165.4. That's a 40% increase. So now we're inhaling 2,272 ambient CFM. The fuel mass went from 6.5 pounds per minute to 8.5 pounds per minute, or an increase of 31%. The air-fuel ratio is 8% leaner at 19.5 to 1. That is lean for a diesel competition engine. Our EGT is up 17.6% to 1524, and that's on a 31% fuel mass increase. The brake spec fuel consumption went up to a 620. So now, even with that lean mixture, the engine is 1.6% less efficient. This is not good. Did you hear me? This is not good. On this chart, everything indicates we should be making one hell of a lot more power than we are making. So I'm scratching my head. What's the next step here? I started thinking, this is a screw blower. It actually compresses the air in the rotor sets, unlike a Roots. What that means here is we're asking the Whipple to compress higher density air than it's designed to. And I think that's whacking out the blower parasitic drive requirement. In other words, my thought at the time was, if I back down the blower, we might make more horsepower. So that's exactly what we did. We backed down the blower and we gained damn near 200 horsepower on less fuel. The boost pressure is down 9% to 39.6 psi. The turbine drive pressure is down 8% from 55.8 to 51.4. This is a full floating match. The wastegates never open, as I said. The turbo RPM actually came down 2,000 RPM, but the horsepower's up. The supercharger overdrive, we drop from 100% over to 33% over. That drops the rotor speed from 11,000 to 7,315. That's a 33.5% reduction in rotor speed. The mass airflow dropped from 165.4 to 159. The air mass is down 3.9%, and we're now inhaling 2,184 CFM. The fuel flow is down from 8.5 to 8.1 pounds per minute. That's a reduction of almost 5% in the fuel consumption. Starting to sound efficient here, I think. The air-fuel ratio is slightly leaner. The EGT is down from 1524 to 1492. But here's what's really cool. The brake spec fuel consumption went from a 620 to a 480. That's an engine efficiency increase of 26%. Aha! There is an issue blowing high density air into a screw blower. I bet you didn't see that coming, because I sure as hell didn't. Based on the EGT and the turbocharger shaft speed, I thought now's the time to push this thing to its safe limit. And that's run number 4. The EGT limit for shorter duration runs on these precisions is 1750 degrees. So the goal in the 4th run was to add enough fuel to hit 1750. When we did that, that gave us 1172 horsepower. So we gained 15.2% on the horsepower. It likes the fuel. Please understand, when I give you a boost number, it's both devices. So now the boost is up 6.6% to 42.2 PSI. But the turbine drive pressure kind of spiked on us here. It went from 51.4 to 60.7. So the turbine drive pressure is up 18.1%. Once again, the wastegates are not opening. Oddly, the shaft speed of the turbochargers remained exactly the same at 126,000 RPM. And of course, the overdrive is still 33%. The supercharger is turning 7,315 RPM. The air mass flow is up 2.6%. We increased the fuel mass flow 32.1% to hit that 1750 or so EGT. Now our air-fuel ratio is 15.2. That's 22.4% richer. I call that Fat City. I'm sure there's a little smoke now going out the pipe, but our EGT is still safe. We're slightly above their red line. We're at 1789 degrees, but the engine is now becoming inefficient again. We're at a 550 brake spec. So the engine is 14.6% less efficient, but it's still safe, safe enough to run short duration events. But for the last run, to hit the 1200 horsepower, the run we just ran today, we had to put some more fuel to it. We needed 28 horsepower. We put in enough fuel to actually hit 1218. I read 1205 on the screen, but I missed the 1218. It's there in the data. So we kind of went too far. But here's the results of that additional fuel. Boost went up 6.6%, drive pressure went up 4.4%. The shaft speed on the turbo actually increased this time to 132,000. The overdrive on the supercharger remained the same. The supercharger RPM remained the same. The mass airflow went up to 167.9 pounds per minute. That's an increase of 2.9%. So we're now inducting 2,306 ambient CFM. Fuel flow is up 3.7%. The air-fuel ratio went from 15.2 to 15.1 at 0.6% richer, but here's a deal breaker. The EGT went from 1789 to 1876. That was probably a good year, but it's not good for the engine. We're 7.2% over the temperature deadline. Are we on kill? Well, apparently not. The turbochargers look great after that run, and she's still singing. The efficiency is equally as bad at a 550 brake spec. So I just gave you some fascinating numbers, and you're scratching your head and going, what the hell, Gale? Well, what the hell indeed. When you compound compressors, put them in series, you get magnificently big boost numbers. I look at the last run, and I go, 45 pounds of boost? The turbos alone can do this. Blowing into the blower should have multiplied. This just doesn't pencil out. We have all the normal data you guys would look at, EGT, boost, all this jive, but we don't know a damn thing about why this combination doesn't make way more horsepower and why it's so damn inefficient. I think we need to look at what's making the boost and what isn't making the boost. And what are the intercoolers doing here? So the first thing I would look at would be the boost production of the various devices. as we go through the sequence. The second thing I would look at is the density production of the various devices. These aren't boost machines, these are density machines. And once you know the density made by each of these density devices, you can assign a horsepower number to each item. That includes ambient air density. Where's the horsepower coming from? So I want to look at boost pressure, who's responsible, density production, who's responsible, and the bottom line is who's not making horsepower here and who's responsible for horsepower here. Well, you think I'd be happy. We just made 1,218 horsepower, but I think we're doing it all wrong. This turbos first and blower second thing, I think is backwards. And I think I can prove that it's wrong with all the data in the next episode. 1,000.